What's up? We are live. It's your boy Mars. Johnny Raps will be with me in just a second. Unknown Comic Book Podcast, where you get all the best comic book talk, MCU, DCU. If it's related to comic book, it's there. And man, we have a good episode for you this morning. Y'all out there in TV land, please do me a favor, smash that like button, comment, subscribe. We want your interaction. We want to have a blast. We welcome you all to the Unknown Comic Book Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics as a comic book head, the astonishing, the uncanny X-Men. So it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a great episode. We're just waiting for Raps to get on. We're going to get this thing popping. But who's watched Secret Invasion? Did anybody watch Secret Invasion? The reviews have been all over the place. I personally really hesitant for the last episode. Hard to believe that they spent too much money on that, but we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the future of the Mutants in the MCU, and we're going to have a blast, man. So I'm waiting for everybody to come in. Please join in the comments, like, comment, subscribe. You know how we do. And of course, shout out to my co-host who will be coming in just a moment. Man, Johnny Raps, whose new single, It's Party, featuring Bizarre, streaming right now. Do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you check that out. I had to turn the music on. It was distracting. So let me see. We're having a little bit of tough technical difficulties, but no worries. We're all going to get this fixed up in just a second. Hey, man, how y'all doing this morning? So it's sunny morning here on the East Coast, 8:40 a.m. We are live, man. We want to know what's next for the X-Men. While we're waiting for Raps to get in the room, I want to show you guys a little treat. So while I grab this, I want you to listen to some smooth sounds, and I'll be right back.
Buckroll.
Maybe I should do a freestyle. You can do it. I want you guys to check something out. I'll be right back.
Purchase your track today. All right, guys. These are just the duplicates, not showing the ones that are all wrapped up. These are 1992 first edition Marvel cards, man. These are plastic. These are plastic. They're going to some of these as well. We'll have a good time. We're live, so technical issues happen. We appreciate y'all for tuning in. Please leave a comment. Still winning. Gave my
like still spinning. Like we see whales still spinning. All the light work.
Purchase your track today.
Once again, shout out to my man Johnny Raps, and of course it's me, your boy Mars Entertainment. Okay, here he comes, here he comes, here he comes. Yes, sir. There he is. We good, bro?
That was crazy. You had to stall out for like 6 minutes.
Hey, man, I got it. It was easy work, light work, light work. I had an opportunity to grab something. You remember these, bro?
Wow.
1992 first edition. These are just my duplicates that I don't have in the book. These
Oh,
are the
nice.
yeah.
I
So
had a shit ton of those, bro. I had like 3 binders full myself.
oh man, I studied these things. I probably would have got a 1600 on the SATs if I would have
I
studied
used
my
some of the characters back in the days.
Oh yeah, man. I'm just going through these and some of these memories, man. Who remembers Slug? Slug,
I don't
X-Men,
remember Slug.
Cable,
Cable for real. I don't remember Cable either. Just kidding.
Dark Phoenix Saga. No, he would not be on the show if he didn't know who Cable. The Stranger. I've had a Stranger or two, but
Stranger.
Stranger Danger.
What a random character.
The Celestials, Eternity, The Watcher.
Wow, you got some good ones.
The Collector, Vision and Scarlet Witch, Namorita, Namor's baby boo.
Oh, I have that card.
Yep. Daredevil and Black Widow, which too bad that was never actualized. Siren. Wolverine from Till Now, when he was buried alive, one of my favorite books. We Are Venom. I mean, just classic memories. So I had that while we were stalling out, while we have technical difficulties. But brother, how you doing this morning?
I'm good this morning, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I just had to close down the browser and like relog into everything. It was weird.
It's all
as
good.
Soon as you started the show, I got booted.
Yeah, I know. But you know, I'm good at stalling. I was about to do I was about to start tap dancing for the people in a minute. I was like, y'all want a freestyle? I got it for you. Hold on. So today's topic, guys, what's next for the X-Men? But we can't start and ask what's next until we start from the beginning. So, Raps, do you have some Raps reads for us? Do you have some essential comic books that if you are, for some reason, just getting into the X-Men, and mind you, this new younger generation, we lived in the highlight of the X-Men, the 80s and 90s when the X-Men were the biggest thing on the planet. Fox has done some things that kind of made the reputation of the X-Men go down the drain, but we're hopeful that it can be brought back to their former glory. But are there some reads that you say that people need to check out to really get familiar with the X-Men?
I would just give you my 3 favorite jumping off points, if you will.
Let's do it.
The original Dark Phoenix saga by Chris Claremont. That doesn't require any explanation whatsoever. That's all I have to say.
Self-contained.
If you only know the movies, then don't be discouraged. It's one of the most amazing, epic comic book sagas of all time. Read that, and that'll give you a good sense of the X-Men. Also, I might go beyond 3 here because I'm thinking of more as I go, because I'm thinking before you even read that, what you should really read is Giant Size X-Men #1. And so it's so easy to find reprints of it. You can get your hand on it somehow. I think originally when I was a kid, I read it on digital. Like I had this weird, my parents bought me this digital comic, and it was a CD-ROM. and you'd like put it like I was on my like old school computer, like, and you could like click on things and it would interact, and like Stan Lee would talk to you, and you yeah, it was, oh, there you go. I'm not doing a very good job describing it, but I don't even know if that thing still, I have it. It might be buried in my parents' basement somewhere, but that's where I think I actually read that first issue. And that's not the first issue of the X-Men, folks. Giant Size X-Men #1 is introducing the entire second team, which, if you didn't know, the original team was just 6 people. It was Iceman, Cyclops, Angel, Beast, Jean Grey, and Professor X. That was it. Beast didn't have blue hair yet.
He's just a big dude with big feet. Very similar to me.
Yeah, Beast didn't have blue hair yet. Angel wasn't Archangel, so he wasn't purple. He just, he just was a guy with wings. And Iceman wasn't gay yet.
Or was he?
Well, things changed.
Was he? With that retcon, the young one came back and told the old one, you're gay, right?
I know. That's the craziest. The way Iceman became gay was the craziest shit to me. But yeah, I guess you don't become it. You are that.
You're born that way.
I apologize.
I would say.
I'm just saying, comic book retcons, they make things that weren't things in the past. But I'm fine. I'm in full support of those nuances in that story were very interesting. So folks, you're gonna read Giant Size X-Men #1, which is going to introduce to you Wolverine, Colossus, Storm. Who else? We got Banshee, Sunfire.
Yes.
Who else? I know I'm missing Nightcrawler.
My guy, Kurt.
Yes. I think that's about it. I think that was like the new team. Some really important ones in there that stuck around, and then some other characters that went to do some other things. But yeah, that's some really good reading, and it's basically what saved the X-Men from cancellation.
Right.
That book itself, where they introduced the new team and everything.
And it's super dope because, as you mentioned, it has such an international flavor because you got Canadian Wolverine, German Nightcrawler, African Storm, Russian Colossus. So it just really opened it up on a global scale for me, which was super
Banshee
dope.
Irish.
Right, Banshee Irish.
Japanese.
Yeah.
So
which I'm just realizing that now at 40 years old, and I'm like, oh yeah, they really just went from a bunch of Americans to just globalizing.
Yeah, that was the whole point of what they were doing, and they saved the book with these new characters that were really cool and relatable in a different way for Marvel. They always make things relatable to real life, right? So they just they just like, yeah, the X-Men are going to be a melting pot. And it worked. And basically they were brought together to save the original X-Men.
Right.
The original X-Men had all been, captured, and Cyclops was the only one that wasn't. And so him and Professor X had to like gather a new team to help save the X-Men from Krakoa. Then I'll move on to what was the last thing I said?
Giant X-Men #1 was the last.
I said
one.
Giant X-Men #1, then Dark Phoenix Saga. Read that after that. Then you can go. I've read almost every Chris Claremont X-Men comic there is, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to, because that was like the entire 80s. And a little bit of the 90s. So that's a lot of reading. And then he even came back and did another series later when he did Extreme X-Men. But what you got to do My favorite Chris Claremont story actually is Inferno. And all I'm going to tell you is that I'm just going to tell you that New York gets overrun by demons. And that's all you need to know. It crosses
Some might
over.
say it's like that in real life right now, you know.
It crosses over into a lot of other Marvel books. That's where we get Demo Goblin and Spider-Man. Things of that nature occur. Everybody gets possessed. There's the inanimate objects get possessed by demons and start coming to life and killing people. Like people start getting eaten by mailboxes and shit. It's a wild story. It involves Mr. Sinister kind of manipulating things from behind the scenes. We get the Goblin Queen, Madeline Pryor, Jean Grey's scorned clone.
Whole Ganger clone, and it's Cable's mama, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cable's mom.
Yeah, Cable's mom.
Anyway,
poor Scott, man.
What's that?
I said, poor Scott Cyclops. He is the worst luck in relationships.
For real. So then next, I want you to read the Onslaught Saga. I don't know how you're gonna pick it up. There's probably an omnibus or something, but I want you to read Onslaught. At least read the Onslaught Omega single issue where they all the heroes fight Onslaught.
Let the people know a little bit if you're watching this, I'm sure you're a comic book fan, but for the uninformed, tell people a little bit about Onslaught and how awesome this character. He's one of my favorite characters, as I mentioned. I grew up X-Men. Well, technically Batman was my first comic book, which I still love, but X-Men were the ones that turned me out, if you will.
I feel like Onslaught was a very criticized.
Oh yeah, at the time it was so OP, but I thought the concept was so dope.
Yeah, it's a little convoluted, but it was like, it was like the combined all of the negative psychic energy basically that Professor X had kept pent up, combined with Magneto's energy, right? Like, I don't even know if I fully understand it, right?
Yeah, I think it was the negative consciousness, and as you mentioned, of that Xavier, everything that he kind of pushed down, and then Magneto combined into one physical being with both their powers, and Magneto's definitely an Omega level mutant. I don't recall if Professor X is, but obviously,
so basically like psychic energy manifested.
Right. Super dope concept. Yeah. It got frowned upon, but I thought it was a super dope concept.
And Franklin Richards has something to do with it.
Bingo. Most powerful, most OP character in Marvel, in my opinion.
They brought him back in House of X.
Yeah.
I mean, they brought him back a couple times over the years, but they brought him back in House of X most recently. And that was a pretty interesting story. I'm going to move on. You can skip ahead. I want you to pick up All New X-Men by Grant Morrison. They might have an omnibus of that too, or there's otherwise there's 3 volumes, three trade paperback volumes. Get it, All New X-Men by Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison's my favorite superhero comic book writer of all time. He is absolutely effing insane, like really off his rocker. And at another time where X-Men needed to be revitalized, he stepped in and gave them a fresh new look and made X-Men as weird as it needed to be in the early 2000s.
That's a fair assessment for sure. That's a fair assessment.
Like I feel like at the time X-Men was there was still epic storytelling going on in the comics, but it wasn't quite as weird as X-Men should be. I think so all new X-Men is very weird. And we get a lot of he introduces a lot of new characters that are still relevant in the comics today. Cassandra Nova. Uh, who else am I thinking of? Zorn or
Swords are weird.
Exorn. How do you? I don't know how I'm supposed to say it. You know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I think that's right. I don't think you pronounce the X. So yeah, I think I would
Because
say
it's confusing to me with characters with people in characters their names start with X. Because
yeah,
Xavier, you say the X in Xavier,
right.
right? So am I like, is it Exorn? But anyways,
Does X make X really doesn't have a sound phonetically. It's just the letter. That's crazy. English. Weird.
it's
Continue.
the letter, or it's like a Z.
Yeah, or it's like a Z. It doesn't, it's like even when you're doing the phonetic alphabet, you're like A is an alpha, B is in Bravo, but then you get the X, you're like X as in X-ray. You're like, what?
Yeah, you don't say you don't say xylophone. It's a xylophone.
It's just xylophone. English, dude.
Man. Anyways, yeah, he introduces some cool characters. That stuff's weird, but he definitely did a lot in those stories that left a lasting impact, in the mythos until this day. And that's what Grant Morrison does. That's what he was doing around that time, especially, he did the JLA, which is awesome. Definitely check that out. He did my favorite thing he ever did was his Batman stuff. His Batman stuff is off the chain. Batman and Robin, Batman Incorporated. He really went nuts on that. I digress. Trying to think of what else I want you guys to check out, man. There's just so much. There's. I'm gonna give them one more. I'm gonna just tell you this. Read House of X.
Was waiting. I was hoping if I didn't hear it, I was going to add an addendum on there. Absolutely.
Read House of X and Powers of X. It's a story that's combined. You can't read one without the other. By Jonathan Hickman. Again, we're talking jumping off points. That is a really good jumping off point. He revitalized the X-Men at a time when we needed to revitalize the X-Men because it happens every so often. And he gave them their own nation. And they're, in fact, the most powerful nation in the world. I'm like a few weeks behind in the comics because I go to pick my shit up from the store once a month. Because it's an hour away, but it's still the best. The Joker's Child in Fairchild or in Fair Lawn, New Jersey is by far the best comic book shop in North Jersey. So I go to them because they're reliable. They don't mess up my pull lists. But yeah, I'm a couple weeks behind, but they've been doing the Fall of X, which is obviously Krakoa's. Every good thing for the mutants has got to come to an end, right? So it looks like Krakoa is about to be in shambles, but I'm not reading anything about it on the internets, so I don't know exactly what's occurred. I haven't read any of the Fall of X stuff yet. So if you know something, Mars, don't say it, but I will tell you.
I actually do, but I'll keep it. I'm not gonna spoil you. So
yeah, I gotta read it. I've been busy. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, the whole last 3 years of X-Men has been under this House of X imprint, basically. And so, yeah, but we're getting the fall of X, and it's about to change some stuff. But again, just read the beginning of it. Read House of X. How it's all mind blowing writing by Jonathan Hickman. We would expect nothing less. And one more I want to throw in there. This was something that I really loved when I was a kid because it really gave the X-Men a fresh spin to me, which was Ultimate X-Men. I actually forget who wrote the original Ultimate X-Men series, but Ultimate X-Men, if you don't know anything about the Ultimate line, folks, basically they put out a whole new, they made an alternate universe, but what it was intended to be, modernized, and it was intended to be a jumping on point for people who may be like fans of the movies, because this was at the turn of the century when they just started. They had done like 2 or 3 X-Men movies. They had done 2 or 3.
And they started in what, 2001, 2002?
Yeah, something around there. So it was mainly like they started coming out with the movies, and they were like, okay, people that are into these movies, there's a lot for them to get caught up on with comics. We don't have the cards anymore. Because back in the day, you just started and read their origin story, and then you knew the basis of the character at least. But they were like, we don't have that, so we're going to give them the Ultimate Universe, which is just a completely new jumping off point. You don't have to understand the convoluted. Basically, you don't have to understand the convoluted history of the Marvel universe here. So, good morning. Good morning. Oh, this is live? Is this live?
Yeah, we're live, baby.
Oh, that's sweet, man. I didn't even know that. That's why you had to stall out whenever I got booted.
Yeah, I started tap dancing. I was like, It was about to get a script show in about 3 more minutes.
But the Ultimates was crazy. It was also, a little bit more graphic, a little bit more, adult in that, it had a lot more like sexual undertones, and it was just great, graphic violence. If somebody gets killed in the Ultimate Universe, they stay dead. There's no coming back from. That's why we got Miles Morales, because the Ultimate Spider-Man, the original Ultimate Spider-Man, that world's version of Peter Parker, dies and you don't come back. Yeah, I think they probably did a story where he comes back eventually.
They brought him back twice, but it was like 20 years later before they brought him back. Well,
that's the issue with the Ultimate line, right? Is because it was meant to be something that wasn't convoluted, but it creates its own continuity and eventually goes completely off the rails itself. And that's what I stopped reading it like a couple years in, because I was like, I mean, I was following all the books. I was reading Ultimate Spider-Man, I was reading Ultimate X-Men, I was reading The Ultimates, which was their version of Avengers, which they eventually just said fuck it and changed it to The Ultimate Avengers. Whatever. But they were the Ultimates, they weren't the Avengers. You get about half of the original Avengers movie is adapted from that first story arc,
including Black Nick Fury is all from the Ultimate Universe.
Not just Black Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson. They drew him. They drew him. He looked like Samuel Jackson.
He was based off of Samuel Jackson. It's just the animated version of Samuel Jackson. Period.
Totally. They drew him like that. Like he was the only person that could play it. I was like, when they started doing the movies, I was like, if Samuel Jackson isn't, and then like he showed up at the end of what it was, like Iron Man 2 or something.
First Iron Man. It was
first Iron Man. He shows up at the
first Iron Man. Yep. The sweaty comic book nerds went crazy because it was literally talking about stepping off the page into real life. It was like life imitating art, imitating art, imitating life, if that makes any sense.
It was so surreal. But anyways, Yeah, check that out because it's fun at least in the beginning. And then they were like, hey, yeah, then he killed him off, and they kept like the coolest characters that people would have gone ape shit if they lost Miles forever.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I mean? So then he was brought into the 616 universe. Um, but they're also doing a new story, Ultimate Invasion, which I'm interested to pick up and see what that's about because it looks like they're bringing back the Ultimate Universe to some degree.
Yeah, and it's definitely, some key characters. I loved the fact that in the Ultimate Cable was Wolverine from the future. There was like a bunch of cool
Oh, I
stuff.
didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Cable was just Wolverine from the future in the Ultimate Universe. So there was a bunch of little changes that were like super dope. And as you
Oh,
mentioned,
big changes.
yeah,
It wasn't the same story at all after
yeah,
a certain point. Like Wolverine started. Wolverine was always a good guy in the original comics. He like worked for the Canadian government and stuff,
right.
right? And did some messed up things back in Weapon X, uh, but like for the most part was a good guy, and he's introduced in the Ultimate comics as like Magneto's henchman. He's one of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and he is sent to uh, kill Professor X. So he's like sent as like a Trojan horse, and he goes and joins the X-Men. And while he's there, falls in love with Jean Grey, and then decides that he's not going back to Magneto. And that's what happens. He even fucking tries to kill Cyclops.
Yeah,
They
I
go on
mean,
a mission together, and Cyclops falls in a pit, and he just leaves him there.
it's like I'm taking your chick. And then I think he had a quote, and my favorite quote in that comic book when he left Cyclops in the pit. He said, "We do a lot for the pussy." Shameless plug. Shameless plug.
Shameless plug for Johnny Raps.
Johnny Rubs.
Bars. All right, I talked enough about what I know about. I'm over here bragging about what I know about the X-Men. I could keep going all day. Oh, all new X-Men. We talked about all new X-Men. Read all new X-Men so you find out how Iceman is gay.
Yes, it's and once again, we definitely support the community. Love is love. But I want to know if any of our LGBTQIA community people, if you discovered your way by a future self coming and telling you, I think they might be offended in retrospect. Like, I didn't know. You just imagine like an older grizzled Mars coming in the door, and it's like, dude, something to tell you.
For those
Are
of
you
us,
sitting
for those
down for
folks
this?
that didn't get the joke earlier, they're just tuning in. Iceman finds himself and ends up coming out because his past self comes and tells him that he's gay. It's not even future self; it's
No,
past self.
past self, which
His
makes
younger version comes and tells him, "Come on, man, you're gay." Like,
you're absolutely
you're not
right,
gay.
which makes it even worse because he you get, I guess he's probably 30 something in comic chronology, and then your 15-year-old self goes like all these chicks you've been smashing, guy. It is not the way. What you really want. Oh, I love it. I love it. But I digress. So let me ask you, bro. You are obviously a aficionado when it comes to the X-Men, all things comic book. Who is your favorite mutant? Who was the one particular character for you that was just the ish, the one that just really blew your mind? Who's your favorite mutant?
Cyclops.
Oh, great choice. Great
Cyclops
choice.
is my favorite. Yeah, he's well, like once I started actually reading the comics, I was pretty much introduced to X-Men like through the cartoon,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah,
I should have had
and
that
like,
theme music.
quickly afterwards picked up the comic, and I was like, damn, they made. I always thought Wolverine was the coolest one, but they made Cyclops a dick in the cartoon. And he's kind of a dick in the comics, but his character is, I also think, the one that has the most depth. I mean, he has experienced so
really,
much tragedy,
the
and
X-Men is
still
about his bloodline, essentially. If you really boil down to it,
the
it's really
Summers.
it's all about the Summers family. The movies did him dirty. I mean, obviously Hugh Jackman's a great Wolverine, but they kind of shelved him in order to tell it was more like Wolverine and the X-Men versus the X-Men. Hopefully,
Yeah.
and that'll transition to our next topic. Hopefully, if they're going to do mutants right, it's going to be focused on the Summers clan. That's the only way, in my opinion, to do it right.
Mhm,
Me, my
mhm.
my favorite mutant back in the day, because I've always been a weirdo. I've always associated what powers would I want if I was blessed with some type of mutant abilities. And I was always a big fan of Magneto. I've always like been attracted to the bad guys, but I'm like, dude, he can control the iron in your blood. I'm like,
That's sick.
he can control the electromagnetism of the planet. I'm like, dude, that's sick. I've always kind of, been on his side. So I was always a big Magneto fan. Definitely probably wouldn't use my powers for good, but still, nevertheless, I was a big Magneto fan. So that brings us to our next subject. We haven't seen really any mutants, at least the ones that we know and love in the MCU. We've had Kamala Khan, who they've retconned as a mutant, which they have since retconned in the comic book. And we've had Namor, who technically, well, I guess Apocalypse is the first mutant.
Wait, we get Apocalypse?
Not in the MCU, but in Black Panther, Namor is a mutant. Like
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
yeah. But I'm thinking in the comic books,
In
was
the comics,
Namor the first
Apocalypse
mutant?
is the oldest mutant we know for a very, very long time.
Yeah,
I
there
mean,
we
and
go.
you learn in the through the House of X saga that there was like a whole race of mutants that existed before like Egyptian times. Like
Right.
it was, and I'm not gonna get into it, but they went away, and then they came back, and it's like interdimensional travel stuff.
Gets weird.
It's all
Gets
very
weird.
John Hickman esque.
That part. That part. But with mutants on the rate, we're right now we're in phase 5. We're a couple of projects into phase 5 so far. We've had Secret Invasion, which if you notice our background, we have Sam in the background, who had a very Raps has not seen Secret Invasion yet, but there's a very interesting Easter egg for those who have not seen it. And I know I've said we're not one of those shows that break down but Nick Fury has a Skrull wife, bro. In the Secret Invasion, we find out, if you remember, in Captain America Winter Soldier, and he says, my wife kicked me out, and we find out he really does have a wife. He wasn't bullshitting. He really does have a wife, and not only does he have a wife, she's a Skrull. Nick is pulling a Captain Kirk, and he is banging some green skinned aliens, and it's all about that. And it's super dope because they really are. She started off kind of like a spy to infiltrate, and then she really fell in love with him, and he really fell in love with her. But if you've watched Secret Invasion, there is a scene when they go to Nick Fury and her house where they've lived together for the last 15 years, and they're happily married, and she's studying. Her name is Vera, who's a real character from the Marvel comic books. But if you pay attention, there's a book in the background that literally has the X-Men logo on it that she wrote, and it's saying studying the superpowered human genome is the book. And as she gets, and this is really not a spoiler for anyone that shows out, available on Disney Plus, you she goes back on Saber with Nick Fury. They go through all their issues, but they decide they love each other. And she takes off her pretty black woman face and puts on her green scroll face. And she's like, "Do you love me as I am?" And Nick Fury's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna tap that green ass. I love you how you are." And he makes out with the green alien chick, and they load onto the Saber. They get sucked up into the Saber, which is going to lead directly into the Marvels, which comes out, I believe, in November. And she's like, "But I have to get back because my work here on Earth is extremely important." And then they show you the book, and it's really all about her studying the mutant gene, essentially. So it is essentially on the table. I love how Marvel put these Easter eggs because realistically, especially with the writers and actors strike, we're probably not going to see some X-Men until 2027 at the earliest, realistically, which
they're killing me, man.
they're killing my heart. But the good news is we're going to get the Fox X-Men in Deadpool 3, which that's kind of where we get to. Right now, we know confirmed Hugh Jackman's back. We know Ryan Reynolds is back. We know Halle Berry is back. We know Famke Johnson is back. We know Professor X is back. So we're gonna get
which Professor X is back. Both.
Well, right now we know for sure Patrick Stewart. But I wouldn't be surprised because he's going to be. It's a time travel story. The TVA from Loki is involved. I wouldn't be surprised by the end of it if we have, young Professor X grabbed out of time and then misplaced all to set up Secret Wars. So I'm super excited for it. What do you want?
Said TVA, so this is going to bring, like we said before, this could bring the X-Men into the MCU as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just like we talked about with the Ultimate comic books, I'm sure they'll pick and choose. They're going to have some people that will probably see the end of their story as Secret Wars, and they'll probably have some that they'll bring over. Obviously, not wishing anything dark upon Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, but we're going to have to start getting a younger Professor X and Magneto in the MCU pretty soon. But we'll probably see.
McKellen hasn't played Magneto in a mad long time.
He's going to be he's going to be he's going to be in it. And the rumor is that Wanda from Doctor Strange, when she dies at the end of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and you see that red flash, that Wanda spirit takes over the body of the Wanda that she had taken over in that universe. And we find out that universe is actually going to be the universe that has Magneto as her father in that universe. And so that's what it's going to be. Apparently rumored is Wanda will be the big bad and we're going to get a proper House of X with Ian McKellen and Quicksilver and all of these guys, all for Deadpool 3, which is shaping out to be huge. Sounds like a 2-part movie to me. I don't know how they're going to squeeze this in.
Like a real Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
A real Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
From the comics, the original ones.
Exactly. And because, it's really the end of the Fox. Not only that, they're talking about Chris Evans and Jessica Alba and that Fantastic Four coming back for Deadpool 3. I'm super excited for it. What Fox element are you looking forward to in Deadpool 3? Rumored, or if you could hope, like, is there something from the Fox element that you really, really love that you would love to see back for Deadpool 3?
Oh, I hadn't thought of it. That's a really, really good question.
It's been a lot of trash, but it's been a lot of good stuff too.
I mean, hey, I like the dude. I forget, his name escapes me right now, but he's a great actor. I like the dude that played Cyclops.
Madsen. Is it Madsen? Scott Madsen?
No, it's
he's been in a lot of shit. Oh my god, I'm ashamed of myself.
He was in a show recently that I just saw.
Westworld. He was in Westworld.
Yeah. Who played Cyclops in the original X-Men movie, please? James Marsden.
Marston. I knew it was something with
He
the
was in
M.
Sonic.
Yes.
He was
Yes.
in they recently did a show about like this guy that's in a jury and the guy there's one guy in the jury that doesn't know that he's getting punked and that it's all staged. But
No,
yet James Marsden is in the jury.
that's super dope.
There's all these like unknown people and James Marsden. And they'll be like, they're like trying to like talk about the case and stuff, and he's like practicing his lines and stuff. But there's
Oh,
one
he's playing
guy,
himself in the movie.
yeah, he's playing himself.
That's awesome.
And like James Marsden is in the jury, but there's one guy, like, and the rest of them are all just like character actors, like being weird people. But there's one guy that has like no idea that this is all a joke. And he's
Nice.
taking it like dead ass serious.
I have to check that out. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think it's called The Jury.
that's on the head. So we'll definitely check that out.
Like on
Yeah.
Freebie.
Martson was a dope. I think he was great as Cyclops. I think he was cast. And if given the plus, we're gonna see the actual costumes, which I'm super excited for.
That's well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I have more things that I'm looking forward to that I have in my imagination that we hadn't seen than of what we've already seen.
Bingo. Yeah.
Like out of like what we've already seen, I think there have been a lot of like there's so many characters in X-Men, bro. There's so many characters in X-Men, and there's so many good ones that get glossed over in those original series. Which I mean, they're great. They're Easter eggs for those of us that know and love the X-Men comics so well. But like, I wouldn't want to see the version of Bishop from Days of Future Past. I mean, to be honest, I would love to see a new Iceman. Like, there's a lot of things where I could take it or leave it. It would be cool to see Ben Foster like reprise Angel and actually get to become Archangel, because Ben Foster is such a good character actor that I think he could play like a really evil Archangel.
Oh yeah, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, his character also just very glossed over in X-Men 3. Doesn't even become an X-Man. He like goes to the school and they turn him away. How? What?
How do you discriminate when you're already discriminated against and you're like, nah, bro?
I felt so bad for his character in that movie. I just felt so bad.
He's a great actor.
I felt bad for the actor because Ben Foster was probably like, yeah, I'm going to be an X-Man.
They're like, you're going to be in X-Men. You're not going to be a X-Men.
It's one of the original guys. And they're like,
I'm hoping when it's all said and done at the end of Secret Wars, when I believe Marvel will do a soft reboot, picking and choosing what stays and what goes. I believe Secret War will end very similar to the most recent Secret Wars, with a reset of the universe, and we'll be getting a new Iron Man, a new Captain America, because we haven't had it. Yeah, we haven't had a new Black Panther, hopefully. We haven't had an opportunity to really have a lot of those characters interact due to the rights issues. So one character that I loved in X2 was Nightcrawler. That opening scene where he's like, when you realize how badass he is, he pretty much just goes in the White House and is like, I could take the president out if I wanted to. And there's nothing any of these Secret Service guys could do about it. I think
they never used that character again until they did the
young version with like Cody McPhee or whatever, and he still never used any of his powers as cool as he did in that opening scene. So I want to see a proper Sabretooth, who was also one of my favorite characters. I don't know how you give him justice on the screen. Do you just hire a body guy and just make him grunt, or do you do it special effects, whatever it may be? I want
them to do the story of Sabretooth where he is, and a lot of this is wishful thinking because
Sure.
they have to go so deep, which is also like we were talking about how there's so many characters. I want them to literally once they fucking finally introduce the X-Men into the MCU, like the X-Men are such a big part of the Marvel comics.
Absolutely.
What what they need to give us is just an entire phase of all X-Men crossover movies. That's all I want when they
I
do it.
agree.
Like give me like introduce I don't know, do an X-Men and Fantastic Four and introduce X Factor. Do another movie and introduce Excalibur. Like just give us a real X Force maybe in
Yeah.
this Deadpool 3 since we have cable and stuff now. Like, give us a real X Force. Um, give us a cable time travel movie. Like, I just want a whole phase of X Men. But I want to see the Sabretooth story where he goes from being a bad guy to being captured by the X-Men and forced to be a good guy.
Which is awesome arc.
Yeah. They like unleash him like a bomb. I think it's Rogue is the leader. Rogue and Cable are like leading the team together. And they got him all chained up and stuff. And then they're just like, okay, we don't know what else to do. Release Sabretooth. And he like goes and like tears a whole bunch of shit up because he has all this pent up energy from being in captivity. And he just go kills a bunch of stuff. And then they like recapture him and throw him back in the Blackbird.
He's literally their version of We Have a Hulk. And they were like, all right, we're gonna have to drop the atomic bomb. Shout out to Oppenheimer, and just drop out Sabretooth. I would love that. I'm hoping, and I agree with you, phase 7, we already know what phase 5 and phase 6 gonna be. But phase 7 should just be the mutant saga. And any character that's non-mutant should just be a B-level character in the story of the mutants, and really just give us, because as you mentioned, that could be a whole universe. Essentially with Fox, it was a whole universe on its own. So a proper phase 7 mutant saga, taking their time and giving us all those deep cuts and stories, and then bringing them together like they did with the Avengers after everyone had their solo movie. I've pitched this before, and I think I've talked to you about this offline. My perfect idea for introducing Wolverine after Hugh Jackman gets his final bow out in Secret Wars would be via Alpha Flight movie, where he's a supporting character. And we're starting off in Canada. We have them hunting the Hulk, and you're introducing all these characters that the Hulk essentially just wrecks, and that's how you introduce Wolverine. I don't want his mask off the whole movie. I want him a man of mystery, similar to how we grew up. Now we all know he's James Pilot. He's had these powers since he was a little kid. He killed his. We know all these things now, but for us, people our age and our bracket, we didn't know who Wolverine was until we were adults. Like, they kept that mum. And I think that would be the dopest way to introduce them, almost like a horror. Doesn't even have to be high budget, because Alpha Flight, nobody in that group really has fantastical powers. It's a lot of punch, kick, stab, and just go hardcore Alpha Flight movie. You could set it in the 70s, 80s, whenever you want to do it, 90s, 2000s, with them hunting a young Hulk, like an early Hulk, when he first got his powers and he left and went to Canada and throw in what's his name again? So it's a W. Alpha Flight's enemy, Wendigo.
Oh yeah, Wendigo.
Yeah, and everybody thinks the Hulk is causing these murders, and it's actually like Wendigo.
Oh yeah, and you do have to tell it as a horror story then, because the Wendigo is caused from basically it's a curse, because
exactly.
if you become a cannibal in that area in the Canadian woods, then you're cursed to become the Wendigo, which is basically like an abominable snow monster thing that is also a cannibal. But you also, there is some you have to have special effects if you do Sasquatch.
Sure.
You know what I
Sure.
mean? And you got
Sure.
there's what's his name? Shaman?
Yeah. There's a Speedball who's like a little
Puck.
for Puck. Oh,
Puck.
I love Puck. Puck, you know,
Speedball is New Warriors.
you're right. You're right. Puck is awesome. I would say my man from Game of Thrones, but uh he's already playing Eitri, who created the Infinity Gauntlet. But that's how I would go. I would introduce Wolverine in a horror style, $150 million budget, hunting the Wendigo, a little bit of the Hulk, lots of shadows, lots of blood. That's how I would personally, if Kevin Feige said, Mars, Raps, I'm giving you guys $159 million budget, and I need you guys to executive produce and create the introduction of Wolverine, that would be my vote. Will never happen in a million years because Wolverine's such a commercial character at this point. But I think that would be something, and then get a really dope, dark, crazy director. I don't know who off the top of my head, that would just really give it some flavor and a lot of practical effects, a lot of gore, a lot of blood. That's the Wolverine I want to see. And then you flash forward. He's been in the wilderness for 20 years from modern day. He hasn't aged a bit because Wolverine doesn't really do that. And then you can introduce him into the modern MCU. But that would be my take. I don't know
Yeah,
if it would be.
there's a lot of opportunity here to give people proper origin stories like
Mm,
like you know uh like Iron Man had now, like
right.
Captain America, Thor. They all got proper origin stories.
Exactly.
This is even, I mean, you could even give Hulk a proper origin story after Secret Wars, perhaps, because they didn't start with his origin in Incredible Hulk.
No, they literally spun off of what happened in the terrible Ang Lee movie and just kind of loosely associated that. And and a DH Mark Ruffalo would be dope. We've seen the technology, it's there. So he's gonna be Hulk most of the time anyway.
Yeah,
But show him, in the 90s or whatever, working on the Weaponettes program or Weapons Plus program. It all ties back to what's going on currently today. So that's what I would like. Let us know in the comments what you would like to do for the proper X-Men. So, bro, we are almost out of time for this episode. What let's finish it off with, what are you most excited for with the Mutants and the X-Men finally coming not only to the live screen, because we've had them for the last 23 years on the live screen, but now we're going to be able to see them interact with all of our other favorite characters. Like, is there a particular interaction that you're really excited for coming up in the next couple of years?
they got to do Avengers versus X-Men.
AVX.
I
Oh
know
man.
it's not going to be the same story that happens in the comics because I think it would take them too long to tell the saga of Hope Summers. Even
Right.
though I think a fucking amazing story would be that cable series told in film where Bishop is time following him across time, and he just keeps time jumping trying to get away from Bishop because Bishop thinks it's his mission to kill Hope. Uh, but you have to introduce and explain to everybody else first. You have to people need to understand who Bishop is and stuff. So I don't think we would actually see that. And you kind of need like all of that to have it make sense. You need the Phoenix Saga as well first,
Yes.
because the whole fear, the people that don't know, Avengers versus X-Men occurred because there is a mutant messiah named Hope who was born, and when she grows into teenage years, she's basically like a Jean Grey doppelganger, apparently. So that it is believed that she was like Jean Grey reincarnated or something, and that she is going to, like she is going to be the new Dark Phoenix, and the Phoenix is actually on its way. The beginning of the story kind of is like it's kind of like it's a throwback to the beginning of the original Infinity Gauntlet comic in a way, where Silver Surfer plummets to Earth to let them know that Thanos is coming. And at the very beginning of Avengers versus X-Men, young Nova plummets to Earth to let them know that the Phoenix is coming. Very similar storytelling right there, and I don't think it's by coincidence.
At all. No, it
But
was
the
definitely a
whole
parallel.
conflict, yeah, the whole conflict is that the Avengers are trying to keep Hope. They want to keep Hope under lock and key so that she can't bond with the Phoenix Force when it gets to Earth. And the X-Men are like, no, she is one of ours. We will fuck you up. And then what happens? The Phoenix Force comes, and instead of going into Hope, it disperses amongst the Phoenix Five.
Five, the Phoenix Force 5. It sounds like a rap group from '88. The Phoenix Force 5.
Cyclops, Colossus, Emma Frost, Magneto, and Namor all got the powers. And then every time the Avengers beat one of them, that powers in that person dispersed into the remaining ones.
Right.
And then
More powerful.
yeah, made them more powerful. But they were like gods, and they were going around fixing everything on Earth, and they were making it a utopia. And what's the problem, guys? But the Avengers didn't like it, and they narrowed it. They whittled them all the way down to Cyclops being the last remaining with all the Phoenix powers. And then Cyclops killed Professor X. But in doing so, there was like a dispersion of power that occurred that gave a bunch of mutants their powers back.
Right.
Like, right? All the mutants that like lost their powers on M Day started like magically getting their powers back, and then new mutants started being born again, which hadn't happened in a very long time. So Cyclops was justified and was like, "Hey, I just saved the mutant race." Like, I mean, I was possessed by Phoenix anyways when I killed Professor X, but still, guys, it was a good thing anyways.
Right.
Anyways, I'm a hero. And then, you know, and then it gets awesome after that, because that's when we get all new X-Men, and then we get that run of Uncanny X-Men where Cyclops is like leading his own clandestine team and trying to rebuild like his own school, while Wolverine has his school. Wolverine's running the Jean Grey school, so we also have Wolverine and X-Men. Oh, man, is that awesome, man? So it would never do that story, but there's going to be. It's too good of a title not to use.
Oh, yeah.
Avengers versus X-Men. And I want to say, before we go, the number one thing I want to see on screen from the X-Men, and you're going to laugh because this is really obscure, but it's one of my actual top 5 favorite villains of all time, is Dark Beast from the Age of Apocalypse.
Bro, Dark Beast is wicked.
Dark Beast. But here's the thing, man. So, folks, there almost every version of Beast in the entire multiverse is a supervillain,
Yes.
except for Beast of 616. But over time, the Beast of 616 has become increasingly shadier.
Yes.
And in the current X-Men books, he's basically gone full Dark Beast.
Yes.
He's basically gone full Dark Beast. He's even gone so far to like mind control Wolverine and create like his own army of Wolverine clones. He also has his own army of Beast clones working under him. He's got like his own secret army.
Oh, yeah.
He's got his own Dark Beast lab. He's like, and like I said, I'm a couple weeks behind, so I don't know what other crazy stuff has happened with him. But yeah, Dark 616 Beast appears to be slowly turning into Dark Beast anyways. And again, I don't think we would need to do the full Age of Apocalypse storyline to get Dark Beast. We could just, it could be any alternate version. It could even, like, they could bring back the one in the picture there. I forget the actor's name, but
Nicholas Hoult. Nicholas Hoult.
They could bring back Nicholas Hoult, and maybe like in that universe, he is already like gone the dark route. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think with Deadpool 3 and these multiversal movies that are going to be in the saga, they have an opportunity to visit universes because we know there's going to be a lot of incursions. That's the whole thing with the TVA, and they're essentially sending Deadpool and Wolverine to these different universes where incursions are essentially occurred, partly because at the end of Deadpool 2, if y'all recall, he was just, if I could turn back time, and just effing stuff up. Shout out to Cher.
He killed himself from Wolverine Origins.
Yes, and killed Ryan Reynolds reading the script of Green Lantern. He caused a lot of chaos, so it gives them an opportunity to visit universes where these guys are fully formed and bringing them back to the 199999 or 616, whatever you want to call the MCU. It goes back and forth. But yeah, I'm super
Wait, does
stoked.
the MCU call itself 616 like the movies?
Yes, in the movies they call themselves the 616. But if you remember in Doctor Strange, she said we're the 838 and we've designated your universe as 616. And then in Loki, when they're showing Loki his life, it says Earth 616. So they've essentially kind of merged the two, which is kind of weird to me. But obviously that's an easy fix during Secret Wars. They could be like, you're not 616. 616 is a comic book. We're 1999, you stupid head. So that's always an option that can easily be retconned and fixed.
But the movies are essentially an adaptation of the comic, so
yeah, they're a merger of the Ultimate and the 616, and they just pick the best elements that they choose as an adaptation, and I'm cool with that. I'm not one of those sticklers that are like, no, it's 1999. I don't give a shit as long as it's quality content. And I think the X-Men right now, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's such a lull in Marvel right now, in the MCU right now, and I'm like, no. Marvel started with C-list characters. Let's be honest. No one was rocking with Iron Man or Captain America or Thor or any of these characters. They weren't top tier. Top tier in Marvel was Spider-Man and the X-Men, which they didn't have the rights to either. And they turned characters like that into the top tier they are, like Guardians of the Galaxy. Now that they have this sandbox to play in, it's limitless. And because the X-Men is so... You can do horror, like I mentioned with the with Wendigo. You could do space with the Shi'ar Empire. You could do grounded like the Morlocks. There's so many options where they could go to just cover the whole gamut. And having
they've already.
Oh, I think we lost Raps again, but we were about to close out this episode anyway. But guys, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in to our chaotic comic book show. We love comic books, and I hope you guys love comic books too. To do me a favor, I want you guys to share this. If you know a comic book head and they haven't seen the best comic book podcast in the game, do me a favor. I want you to share this with that comic book fan. I want to give a special shout out to all my Down in the Den After Dark crew, Kyle Jones, Fitzgerald, Shortman, the Politicking as Usual crew. We have a brand new episode of Politicking as Usual right now on the channel. Check that out. And of course, please check out my man, Johnny Raps, my partner in crime, one of the dopest MCs in the game. You can stream his music everywhere you listen to music. If you like that raw hip hop, he's the guy for you. And for your boy Mars, for my man Johnny Raps, we love you guys. He's back.
Yo. I was gonna say, I'm back.
We got you. Go ahead and give us some closing words, bro.
I was gonna say they also started to introduce Midnight Suns. You know what I mean? They did the what is it? The Wolf movie?
Yes, Werewolf by Night.
But yeah, so we got Elsa Bloodstone.
We've got Blade. We've got my man Kit Harington as the Dark Knight, or not the Dark Knight. What's his name? What's his character? It's not the Dark Knight. It's
Black Knight.
Black Knight. There you go. Black, dark, same difference.
Black Knight. We got.
So and I would love to see my man who plays Homelander as Dracula. He's rumored to be Dracula. Anthony, I can't remember his name. I'm about to say Anthony Stark, but that's a different character. Yeah, so it's so much goodness. So when people say the MCU is dead, no. Right now they're just setting pieces in place. They're getting things together. I have trust in Kevin Feige. This man has created art for almost 30 years for us comic book heads. He's a comic book head himself. And yeah, the corporate B started putting shows that probably shouldn't have been on TV just to get that content out there. But I believe we're in a good place right now. So I'm excited. I'm excited for the rest of the MCU and what's going to go on. And of course, the comic book. So, Raps, give them your closing words. We're going to wrap this episode up, brother.
I'm gonna say this because this doesn't give you a whole lot of time to respond. I just want you to be able to sleep on this, because but I wanted to fuck with your head. I watched a couple movies after we recorded last week. I got off and I rewatched The Flash, and I loved it even more the second time around. And then I watched Shazam: Fury of the Gods, and I loved that shit.
You loved it?
Oh my God. I was laughing. I was like, it was great. I thought it was cool. It was fun. I don't know. I mean, I understand. I feel like it was such a cop out that Wonder Woman just shows up at the end and brings him back from the dead. That was definitely like quite the Deus ex machina, as they would say.
Yes. Deep cut for the movie heads, if y'all don't know what that means. But yeah, and she essentially did the same thing in The Flash. Bruce is about to die and drop the guy and poison Gotham City, and she just
shows up out of nowhere.
Like, Heifer, where the hell have you been? And where's Invisible
apparently she's just going around, like, she's like the Robert Downey Jr. of the Snyderverse.
Yes.
She's like, I'm gonna be in your movie, bitch.
All I need is
like, my last movie wasn't too good, so I'm gonna be in your movie, bitch.
Yeah, WW84. And once again, we're not anti-women here, but probably one of my top 3 trash movies, superhero movies I've ever seen. It was from the way she was flying.
It can't be worse than the original Fantastic Four series. It can't be worse than the second Fantastic Four series.
Anything with Fantastic Four. You know what? Just like you love Spider-Man 3, not gonna lie, the original Fantastic Four.
The first one is good. It
was pretty good. It wasn't that bad.
The extended version.
I haven't seen the extended version.
Oh no, go look it up maybe today. There's an extended version which makes it's a little better. There's more Doom.
Okay.
More Doom, which was my beef with that movie. I thought it was a great, perfect origin story to Fantastic Four until they get to fight Doom at the end. There's all this build up to fight Dr. Doom, and then they whoop his ass in 2 seconds.
Yes.
There's nothing threatening about that Dr. Doom until he gets the Silver Surfer's powers in the second movie.
Right, which is
he is not a threat, and he's like a joke, which is insulting because Dr. Doom is one of the coolest fucking supervillains ever.
Top 3. Easy.
Ever. He can do anything that Iron Man can do and anything that Doctor Strange
can do. Dude, and anything that Black Panther can do because he's a ruler of his own society. He's essentially a king himself. So I mean, you have that monarchy type thing like Black Panther. You have the technical genius and wealth of an Iron Man with the mystical abilities of Doctor Strange and the ego of Ego, where you want the world kind of crafted in your image.
Is that why they don't do him right though? Is that why? Because they filmmakers are just like, nah, it's too unrealistic. There's no way he could be all these things.
Yeah, I think that's a part of it. I think he's just so he's very. If you do Doctor Doom justice, how does the Fantastic Four beat him? They don't. Just like, it's usually Doctor
They
Doom's
shouldn't beat
hubris.
him. They
Yeah,
shouldn't
they
beat him.
should no, they
They
shouldn't
should
beat him.
never beat him. It
They should
doesn't
never beat
matter. We don't need him to be beat for the movie to end. There should always be a little bit of a cliffhanger with Doctor Doom. And I mean, the other thing is he's so smart that he's not just a bad guy. He's conveniently a good guy whenever it suits him, or whenever like
Yeah,
the whole universe is going to come to an end. I'll be okay. I'll help you guys out.
right. And he's not one of those mustache twirling, I just want to end the world. He just wants his people to be good, and he wants the proper respect as a monarchy and a ruler. Yeah, he's got an ego, but I mean, who doesn't?
One of my
Um,
favorite relationships in all of comicdom is Valeria Richards and Doctor Doom.
yes,
The
yes,
daughter of Reed and Sue Richards,
yes,
Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman, is basically a savant genius. She's
yes,
smarter than even her father, and
right,
she's like 8 years old. But she
yeah.
has this tender, loving relation. Like Doctor Doom loves her because of how smart she is, and
And it
and she
shows their relationship
calls him
because in
like,
Secret Wars, when he became God Emperor Doom, you saw what he did. He made Reed's family his family. He was like, I don't like you, but I'll take that right there. So,
yeah, yeah.
pretty much had the thing as a as a wall protecting protecting
That's
his.
why I forgot that part.
Yeah, but no, it is super dope. And I don't know who they will cast as Doom. I mean, maybe after Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy.
That'd be good.
I could see him. A lot of people were talking about Adam Driver, but I would love to see Cillian Murphy. I think he
What were
has.
they saying? Adam Driver for Reed Richards?
Well, everybody wanted him as Doom, and then they were saying Reed Richards, but then that apparently fell apart, and we still don't know who the hell is going to be cast.
What
The
fell
movies.
apart because of the strikes and stuff?
Well, it more before that, they was like money issues. I think he wanted something like 15, 20 million. Marvel's not about that life. They get guys that can really act, guys and gals that can really act and play the role that's not going to bankrupt them. I think that's one of the reasons we don't really see Robert Downey Jr. around now, because he got to the point, I think he had 7 minutes of screen time in that Spider-Man movie, and they paid him like $15 million for like 7 minutes. Like,
What, in Homecoming?
yeah. And so it becomes super, super expensive when someone's built to that tier. But maybe he'll do a licensing deal so they can AI his voice and just make him the AI or something. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, man, I Doom deserves his respect. I know we're supposed to be talking about the X-Men, but we are starting a petition right now for Doom's respect. We
Doctor
need.
Doom is an X-Men bad guy, though, too. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, he's an
Pisses me
everybody
off
bad
that they
guy.
didn't have. I mean, because it's one of those things. I feel like it's one of those things where it could have been, the rights could have been Harry, but
Yeah,
since he was like originally the Fantastic Four's bad guy, I think he's automatically a Fantastic Four character. But
yeah,
he's literally a bad guy for everybody in the
everybody. He's a
Marvel.
threat to the universe, not just the world. He's a threat to the universe. He's that powerful. So hopefully we'll have a great cast for Doom, and we get to see him for the next 20 years of our life, because that's how super dope he is, and that's what we deserve. So shout out to Raps for that deep cut. That was a dope.
Yeah. And after we get off of here, I'm going to dive back into the Infinity War omnibus, which I've had for years, but it's just intimidatingly huge. It's the biggest book I have on my shelf. My fiance got it for me for like Christmas 2 years ago, and I haven't cracked it. I'm just like, how do I even hold this thing? But I got a little table. I sat it down like a Bible. It's fucking huge, and I just turn it one page at a time and read it, and turn it one page at a time. But yeah, I'm gonna go jump back into that where Doctor Doom happens to be teaming up with Kang.
Love it. I love it. Which, maybe we'll see. Things are looking good for Jonathan Major, so maybe we'll see some Doom
and Kane team ups with Doom ultimately betraying him. And because that's gonna happen. That would be super. He has Doom bots. I love Dr. Doom. So
well, it's great in the Infinity War comic when they're together. Their thought bubbles are both showing at the same time how they're going to betray each other.
Once I gain his trust, I'm gonna snap this.
They're literally both using each other because they're both so insidious.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I would love to see that. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of the Unknown Comic Book Podcast. This is the live version. Check the replay at midnight tonight. As always, have that replay launch for midnight tonight. For your boy Mars, for John E.
Raps.
It's your favorite comic book podcast. And like we end every episode, man, support your local comic book stores. We're out.
How many times we try to end this?
Like 4 times, but we're gonna keep talking because we're so dope with this shit.